in the end.
Well, it's been some time since we've tuned back into Crash FM, but now that I have a physical of this game, for reasons I'll explain later, welcome back to the Burnout series. After Burnout Revenge was another success, Criterion waited until the 7th gen fully kicked in to start work on the next Burnout game. While in between Revenge and this one, we would get Burnout Dominator, but that was not developed by Criterion, rather by EA UK, because they were working on this one. In between the time the original Burnout and Revenge released, the 6/early 7th generations had a major surge in open world games. Alex Ward had played many of them, but three in particular stood out to him: Crackdown, Test Drive Unlimited, and Mercenaries Playground of Destruction. Essentially, they were right to add content, and you had the freedom to do whatever the hell you wanted when it came to side content and just screwing around. Ultimately, no two play sessions of an open world game would be the same. This is what formed the foundation of the next Burnout game. Essentially, you would have tracks that are not predetermined. This was seen in the Midnight Club series of games, but Criterion wanted to add that signature Burnout flair to make it stand out. Multiplayer was also going to be prominent in the way that you could just drive around and chat with people, complete challenges by yourself or with your friends. The possibilities were going to be endless. Once again, though, everything was not without its hiccups. EA once again was hesitant with letting Criterion do their thing. You would think they would have learned that lesson with Burnout 3's development history, but EA's gonna EA. Why were they hesitant? Because the open world idea was not presented in a way that they would have liked. Ward had to take extra steps to show his bosses that this was all a good idea, especially since EA didn't view the Burnout series the same way they did their main racing cash cow, Need for Speed, which itself was going through a second golden age that started with Need for Speed Underground. I'm guessing because Need for Speed was their own baby and Burnout wasn't, but whatever. Development of the next Burnout started in late summer 2006, the same year Need for Speed Carbon came out, and it was confirmed for both the PS3 and the Xbox 360. The first trailer dropped in May 2007 and confirmed the title, Burnout Paradise. It was also shown off at Microsoft's E3 Bringing It Home promotion that year, in addition to being a part of EA's lineup. Things seemed to go relatively smoothly in spite of one small delay from late 2007 to very early 2008. Burnout Paradise was developed by Criterion and published by EA and released on the PS3 and Xbox 360 on January 28, 2008 for North America, 3 days later for Europe, and February 7, 2008 for Australia. The game later found its way to PC via the Ultimate Box Edition on February 9, 2009 for North America, 1 day later for Europe, and March 12, 2009 for Australia. This release had every free update and game-changing content pack at the time of release. The game further received a remastered release on March 16, 2018 for PS4 and Xbox One worldwide, August 21, 2018 worldwide on PC, and June 19, 2020 worldwide on Nintendo Switch. Now, I had the original PC release. It was one of the earliest games I got on Steam, but that version has since been delisted in favor of the remastered version. This version has all the DLC except the Time Savers pack, which just unlocked everything from the start. So why don't I have this on Steam? One word: Origin. See, for a while, EA refused to release their stuff on Steam because EA, and they would make you use Origin. Eventually, they couldn't live with their own failure, and that brought them back to Steam. But rather than patch out Origin, now EA Play, they basically pulled a Ubisoft and put two services between yourself and your games. While they have backed off with this, with many more recent games like the Dead Space remake, and even in the case of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you can actually bypass it entirely and still have Steam achievements and the overlay and what have you. For many of the older games, they just plopped it on there and said, fuck it! As such, I didn't want to go through the hassle, but I also wanted the remastered version. Never did get it on PS4, but for those of you who saw my last Retropalooza Houston pickups video, you saw that I managed to get the Switch version. So we'll be playing that, as you'll see throughout the video. Ultimately, the game was a success and proved Alex Ward right that Burnout could be done in an open world. However, not all is as close to perfect as it seems here. Let's take a look. It doesn't take long for you to get the gist of Paradise and what it has to offer, seeing as how the game doesn't have a traditional menu. As soon as you click Enter Paradise City, you're told all about the game's setting while also getting the lay of progression from Jules to John, who did the same for the last game, in addition to Faye from Mirror's Edge and this annoying twerp, but never mind that. Paradise City is the only location here, as opposed to many locations around the world seen in the previous games. But don't worry, there's a lot to enjoy here. The progression has also changed here quite a bit. This is in regards to both the races and the ranking system. I'll explain more of how this works in just a bit, but it's very easy to grasp. After we're given a quick rundown, we're then greeted by a familiar voice.
This is Crash FM, and I'm DJ Atomica.
That's right, our old pal DJ Atomica from the SSX series returns to sort of fill the void left by Striker from Burnout 3. You're given a basic learner's permit to start with, and as you win races, you'll earn marks on your license. When you reach a certain milestone, your license will be upgraded to the next level. You'll get one car to start with, and then you'll be off to race. You'll notice right away the game now has a more open world ordeal going on here. Every intersection in Paradise City has an event. Race and Road Rage return from the previous games, but you do have some new ones that are modified versions of events from past games and even brand new event types here. Burning Route has you race to a specific location within a time limit, almost like Burning Lap. Marked Man has you try to get to the end goal without being wrecked by your opponent. You won't automatically lose if you get taken out once, but if you get taken out enough, you will wreck out. Stunt Run will have you achieve a target score by chaining stunts together. Barrel rolls, flat spins, airtime, you get the idea. Reach the score within the time limit. Then you have Road Rules. These are specific events that take place on roads. There are two types, Time and Show Time. The former is where you drive from one end of the road to another in a short amount of time. The other is Show Time. This is where you have to do as much damage as you can to traffic on a road. Use the boost button to ground brake to drag the car along the road. The score is determined by how much damage is caused in addition to how long it lasted. That's it for events. I know what you're thinking. Where is Crash Mode? Showtime is the replacement. That's right, there are no dedicated Crash Mode events. It's basically activated wherever you want, or at least on the Showtime events. But the map isn't set up for events like these. There's often a lot less traffic on the roads, and it just feels like a more difficult version of the insurance fraud activity from Saints Row, just with cars. This is kind of a letdown because Crash Mode was always a highlight, but here it's been neutered. I wish I could say that's the only major change, but even the races feel different. Rather than doing things on closed circuit courses, or even point A to B races like in the first two games, the races only have one point to the finish line. That's it. You have complete free reign to go however you want to get to the finish line. The races in a way almost now feel like Midnight Club due to the change in structure. Not only that, but boosts can now be refilled by driving through a gas station in addition to dangerous driving. Cars can be repaired by driving through garages, and you can smash through yellow gates and burn out Paradise billboards. The yellow gates give you shortcuts, and getting all of them will unlock a bonus. As you continue to win races, you'll level up your license. However, when you start off a new level on the license, all of the wins are cleared off, well, the entire map. While this does allow you to redo certain events with new vehicles, it does get repetitive playing the same ones over and over again, especially if you want to get the elusive Burnout Elite license. You need to beat every event in the game, which you can only start towards once you get the Burnout license, or the Burnout license to just beat the game. So not only do we have a lot of game progression structure changes, but even the actual racing feels different. Well, on the surface, it's like your standard Burnout driving. It's fast, dangerous, and it's intense. You can take people down, but it's not as smooth as it is in the past games. I think it has to do with the fact that cars have more depth with how they handle. Oh yes, there were differences in how they handled in the past, but this time there's more depth to the stats. As opposed to just speed and weight, there are now 3 categories: speed, boost, and strength. On top of that, each car has a different boost type. Speed boost allows you to perform burnouts and boost chains like in Burnout 1. Stunt vehicles earn more boost by performing stunts and using driving skills like drafting and drifting. Aggression boost works like it does in 3 in Revenge, where you earn more boost by getting takedowns, but you'll lose a piece off of the meter if you crash or get taken out. I do appreciate the effort to try and make each car stand out on its own. However, you can feel the differences in racing here as a result. You can't check traffic unless it's a bigger vehicle you're driving, and even then there are still limitations. Takedowns feel more difficult to pull off, and it's not quite as snappy as 3 and Revenge. I do want to make it clear this game still plays well and fun. It's just a bit more difficult than 3 and Revenge. Oh, and you can also drive motorcycles here, which are very nice. The controls, at least, are still pretty good across the board. While other versions of past games have some differences between controls, such as using triggers to accelerate on Xbox versus face buttons to do so on PS2, there is actually a lot more parity between all console versions of the game. This even extends into the remaster. Left analog stick steers, right analog stick controls the camera, left trigger is for brake and reverse, and the right trigger accelerates. Left bumper gives you a rear view, and the right bumper skips to the next song. Hold both triggers to start the event when at a stoplight, and hold both bumpers to enter showtime. Up on the D-pad accesses road rules for online stuff, and left on the D-pad pulls up the Easy Drive menu, which will allow you to restart races amongst other quality of life menu navigations. I'll be referring to Switch controls from this point on, but it will match up with the other buttons and where they're placed on their respective controllers. B is boost / ground brake during showtime, Y is E brake / handbrake, X changes the view, minus is the map, and plus is, well, the details, which is essentially the pause screen and then some. Input is responsive and feels natural. It's very easy to grasp the controls and they work. The only ordeal here is that you can't rebind any of them across the console versions. If playing on PC, you can rebind the keys or controller depending on what you're using. This applies to both PC ports. I feel the Xbox controller would probably play the best, but you should be fine with any version control-wise. Burnout Paradise on a graphical level probably is the best looking game in the entire series. I think we all realize how big improvements can be from a previous generation to a new generation of consoles, but Burnout Paradise really takes things to a whole other level thanks to the 360/PS3. Lighting throughout the game looks much better and realistic than ever before. It manages to capture many different times of day, though day and night cycles weren't added until a patch later on. It does it very well, and things like shadows look better than they did before. We also get the usual bevy of improvements with things like car textures looking sharper and smoother, certain surfaces looking shinier and more detailed, and the same thing applies to buildings like houses and office buildings, environmental objects, roads, NPC cars, etc. Not to mention there's a lot of variety in the city with locations that you visit. The big improvements seen here, though, are the crashes. Crashes have always been a strong suit of Burnout, and this game's no exception. Cars now dynamically compress and deform around whatever they crash into. It makes the crashes look more realistic, and none of them will look entirely the same depending on what you crash into. It's almost like one of those crash test dummy ordeals, and the damage is just as well rendered. The open world is also handled well with little to no pop-in at all, and the game manages to keep a smooth 60 frames per second in all versions. There are some minor differences between the Switch and PS4 version. Digital Foundry made a video about that, but you should be fine with any version of the game. The PC version is the best across both releases, but you will be fine with any of the console versions should you go that route, though the remastered version looks especially nice. The sound design excels like it always has in this series. Sound effects for racing, boosting, near misses, crashes, jumping and landing, etc. These all sound good, and the driving sounds can switch up a bit depending on if you're driving off-road. Menu sounds are fine here. though I do prefer 3 and Revenge's, but that's just me. And the sound is fine, though I do wish environmental sounds were a bit more prominent. The game has a pretty rockin' soundtrack. You can't have a game take place somewhere called Paradise City and not have Guns N' Roses' Paradise City in there. It's the title theme for the game, and I'm pretty sure this is what started my love for Guns N' Roses. But that's not all there is here. We have a mix of alt-rock, metalcore, pop-punk, some electronic, some punk, some fusions, and it's just a solid mix all around. Such artists on display include Killswitch Engage, Alice in Chains, Airborne, Jimmy Eat World, LCD Soundsystem, the latter two returning from the past games, Jane's Addiction, Depeche Mode, Twisted Sister, Seether, and Avril Lavigne. Yeah, with the song that many people thought was the most annoying thing she ever did until she managed to find a way to top herself. But hey, this at least works better here than you might think. Also, Nerd's Rockstar, the Jason Nevins remix, appears here because featuring that in SSX3 wasn't enough. Songs from past Burnout games return, including the original music made for Burnout 3 before they replaced it with a licensed soundtrack. And classic music can play upon the camera panning around the area when you are idle. It certainly is a variety here, but each category fits where it needs to. 360 and PS3 players can use custom soundtracks. All others insert your music streaming choice here to make up for that. Not much in terms of voice acting other than the two we already mentioned earlier. Jules DeJohn and Mark Hildreth do a good job here. And it's pretty much what you would expect. Between the number of events to complete and online modes, at least in the remastered version, since the servers have been turned off in the 7th gen versions, you're going to be busy for quite a while. Burnout Paradise does manage to bring the series successfully over to the 7th generation of consoles, and it's another solid entry. It looks well, sounds well, plays well, and it manages to keep the essence of Burnout while changing up the formula with the open world. However, the gameplay doesn't feel as good to me as something like 3 or even Revenge, harder takedowns and not as snappy. The game especially seems repetitive because you will likely be replaying the same events at certain points, especially to get the Burnout Elite license. The PC versions still use that EA app/Origin, or whatever the hell you want to call it, crap. At least the newer remastered version does. There are some graphical differences across the versions, with minor imperfections across all. And not having a dedicated crash mode and dedicated crash junctions suck, considering they were some of the best parts of 3 and Revenge. And that's all there is to it. It's still a very solid racing game, but it falls a tad bit short of the bar set by 3 and Revenge. Still, there is fun to be had here. The game is relatively cheap and easily available. If you like the others and want Burnout with a dash of Midnight Club, this is it. I give Burnout Paradise a 4.5 out of 5. That's pretty much every Criterion Burnout game ever made. There might be other ground with Burnout, but I'm just gonna leave it here for now. Off to vacation in Paradise City. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe below and check out the playlist on screen for more content. To help support the show beyond the usual means, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi on the link tree in the description. And come by my Twitch where I conquer my backlog one game at a time. See you in the next video.